Another thing I get asked all the time is, what kind of flooring would you put in a laundromat? Now there's three things I've seen done in laundromats. You hear that? That's the sound of money. You wanna know what the sound of money is? That's it. Ching, 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 ching. Ching, 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 ching. One is the old standard VCT tile. Basically that 12-inch square tile, and it's got like a flake pattern in it. You put glue down and you just go crazy with it. They're in white, gray, all different colors. The second thing I've seen is ceramic tile, or even ceramic commercial tile. And today, a lot of people are using grays and dark colors. Before they were using tans and other colors away from white, like beiges and tans. Now it's more of the gray tones. The third thing is epoxy. Epoxy flake or epoxy, metallic epoxy. Metallic epoxy is real shiny. There's really no traction to it. And then you have flake floor, which has the grit to it. And both those are different types of epoxy. Both go down pretty much the same way. Pros and cons to both. Let's talk about VCT tile. The reason a lot of laundromats anymore are getting away from VCT tile is because they shrink in the gaps where the joints are, get dirt in them, and they just look horrible. You have to maintain it with a floor maintainer, which is one of those power buffers. You got to strip the wax, put wax on, buff it. They look great when you buff it, but after a week or two, hard use, they look horrible. A lot of people have gotten away from that. Ceramic tile. This by far is probably the most popular thing because you can change out your laundromat from every couple of years with a different ceramic tile. Just go in with a power scraper, scrape all the tile off, put new tile down. This is one I would recommend. I would recommend the floor tile that looks like wood planking. That is what I would recommend. Not the squares, but the wood planking. You want to break up those lines in your laundromat. It gives it a whole lot nicer look. And the small tile actually makes the room look bigger. Bigger tile makes the room look smaller. I would go with the ceramic tile with the wood look that's about 4 inches wide. And I think they run about 2 foot long. It's a great look. And you want to pick a grout that's dark. So you want to go like black or charcoal or something with like a grayish color tile. Those are the in colors. Now, you may be watching this 20 years from now. Your color choices may be different. But right now, that's what I see a lot of people doing. Very popular. Goes great with the stainless steel look and the black bases people paint on their horizons that I use. The last thing is epoxy. You have flake epoxy, you have polished concrete floor, which is an epoxy-like surface, and then you have metallic epoxy. I like epoxy. I like polished concrete. Polished concrete is the best of the three, and here's why. Because if there's ever a mess up, you can just go in and buff it and reapply your polish to it, which is like a sealer. Kind of like treating your deck every so many years. I like that. Metallic epoxy is tricky because if you have any imperfections and that floor screws up or somebody rips up a chunk, you can't fix it real easy without it being noticeable. So that's why even though I use it, I don't necessarily like it. One thing I like more than the metallic epoxy is the chip floor, which is basically epoxy with the chips in it. Now some people do a partial chip, a quarter, there's different sizes, and here's the thing. There's different size chips you use in this metallic flake floors. The smaller the chip you use, the bigger your room's going to look. The bigger the chip you use, the smaller the room's going to look. So go with a size like an 1/8 inch. It's perfect size, it makes your room look huge. You want to give people the appearance that everything's bigger than it is. Just like your washers. The bigger they are, the better they are, in their opinion. So you want to make it look like they have tons of room, it's open, it's airy, it's light, it's visible. That's the one thing you want to do. Now with that chip floor, I would recommend that over the straight metallic epoxy because you have grit to it. Is it hard to clean? Not really. If I have a floor buffing, cleaning, sweeper thing, and it can clean just about anything, I would recommend getting one of those. If you don't want to get that and you want to use the old mop and bucket, that's hard to clean any floor. Because really a lot of times after the first swipe or two, you're just spreading the junk around somewhere else. So I'm big on the buffers, the floor cleaners that have the buffers and the squeegee behind. The power sweepers, whatever you want to call them. That's what I have at one of my laundromats. It cost me like $1,000 from Grainger. I look for them to go on clearance at times. Sometimes you can find used ones, people going out of business that did janitorial work. I would go with that route. So back to it, my top 3 choices would be, first it'd be ceramic tile, then it would be a flake floor, then I would go concrete polished floor, and I would never in all my life use VCT tile. You'll see other laundromat channels where they got the old VCT tile. It's because that was the thing. You know, it was bisque was a color. Bisque was like an off-white. A lot of these laundromats, you'll see these off-white looking dryers, and you go, man, they look faded. That's bisque. Back in the day, that was the color. The VCT tile was the floor, and you had the false ceilings. You had the grid 2x4 paneled ceilings. That was what everybody did. Now everybody opens them up, everybody paints them industrial, gets industrial colors, does the heavy duty tile. That's what people are doing now. May change later, but that's what I like. And from my experience, that's the best. I have 3 epoxy floors, and I don't have any problems with them. But if I ever change out equipment and I have to cut the floor for bases and that, I gotta redo my floor. If I had ceramic tile, I gotta redo it too. I may get lucky and be able to patch in pieces, but that's just something to keep in mind, the pros and cons of those floor tile versus the epoxy. A little more, less labor intensive. Epoxy, 90% of what you do in epoxy is going to be cleaning that floor. You're going to have to buff, you're going to have to sand it, you're going to have to strip it, you're going to have to etch it, you're going to have to clean all that up, and then you're going to have to hope your primer sticks. Then you're going to have to hope that you mix the material right, because if you mix it wrong, you won't know until it starts to cure if it's good or bad. And I've had soft spots because of a mistake I made. Never turn the bucket upside down and just leave it there for stuff to run out because you're trying to get the last little bit out of the bucket. That's a big mistake. I had soft spots, and you could see where the bucket lid, you could see where the bucket actually sat on that floor. So don't do that. Maybe I'll do a video on all the mistakes I made with epoxy, but epoxy is great, but it's also very labor intensive, and it takes a lot to do it well. I think I've done 4 or 5 floors or 4 or 5 things out of epoxy now, and every time I do it, I learn more and more about it. So I think it's one of those products, I don't think, even if you're an expert, you get it right every time. I've had some floors turn out amazing, and I've had some that I have issues, and you have to fix them. So that's my answer on flooring. I get that a lot. What kind of flooring would you use? That's what I would use.